As the title for this episode says, I am not going to be looking at something horror-themed, but is still a horror show, but for different reasons. If anyone has seen the 4th episode of the Bisexual Movie Buff, you'll know that I talked about the Passion of the Christ for that review. And I said I don't really watch religious films because I'm an atheist and I have a lot of issues with religion, but I felt I should check a few out just so I could have a critical point of view, and I feel I shouldn't avoid any movie of any kind. And I thought, what better than to start with the clown prince of Christian propaganda himself, Kirk Cameron. Yep, I'm gonna be talking about the Left Behind movies today. When I went into these movies, I was dreading them pissing me off a lot, but the Left Behind movies with Kirk Cameron are just lame. In the end, it was just kind of boring. And as to what these movies are about, the first one, titled Left Behind the Movie, stars Kirk Cameron as a TV news reporter named Buck Williams, who is on an airplane being flown by a pilot named Ray Steele. Yes, Ray Steele. When all of a sudden the rapture happens and all the true believing Christians are sent to heaven while everyone else is left on Earth to deal with the apocalypse. I'm not going to go into the clusterfuck of mistakes revolving around these films' religion and politics, because that would just take hours. When I was watching the first Left Behind movie, all I could think was, fuck the religious shit. The editing is the true horror show. I mean, the editing is just atrocious. The transitioning is just embarrassing. I mean, you're the hunter from the future at better editing. And the directing of this movie is just awful. And these films have the usual schlock of the atheist characters being one-dimensional, obnoxious assholes until they've been converted. After they become Christians, they're still one-dimensional, just perkier. Left Behind 2, Tribulation Force, has Kirk's character Buck, the pilot character Ray Steele, and the pastor for Steele's local church, played by Clarence Gilliard, who you may know from the first Die Hard movie as the guy who said, "And the quarterback is toast!" As well as Chuck Norris's sidekick on Walker, Texas Ranger. And Ray Steele's daughter, who it's implied may be in the baby steps of starting a relationship with Kirk Cameron. The group of the title, the Tribulation Force, it's a little unclear exactly what they're out to do. On the one hand, it's shown that they're trying to convert as many people to Christianity as possible to save them. But on the other hand, Buck and Ray are out to try and infiltrate the Antichrist's group so that they can get on his good side as a way of stopping him. And the pastor keeps telling them that they can't stop the Antichrist, that what he's going to do to the world is inevitable, and yet they still try to do it. And even the pastor goes along with helping them at some point. But at the same time, he keeps reminding them, you can't stop him. And my thought in all this is, if you can't stop him, then why are you trying? By the end, the second movie is about Kirk Cameron going to Jerusalem to convince the world's biggest religious scholar that these two men at the Wailing Wall are prophets from God, and to listen to them so they can convince the guy that Jesus is the Messiah. All the while, the rabbi is sort of under the control of the Antichrist. And the only thing that really stuck out to me with the second movie was the only prominent Jewish character in this very Christian series comes off as very easy to manipulate and very easy to persuade his opinion. Overall, he comes off as very weak-minded. So yeah, this character, more or less, comes off like he was made up to be a dumb Jew. And something I thought was really funny in Left Behind 2 was when Buck Williams says he wants to go to Jerusalem to do a story about the two prophet characters. his boss under the influence of the Antichrist says, "They are deceivers and liars. If you go cover them, it'll give them attention." It's like the movie is self-aware. And now on to the third film, Left Behind, World at War. And I will admit, the third one is the most enjoyable, and for one reason. Somehow, the people behind these movies were able to get Louis Gossett Jr. to do this. And Louis Gossett Jr. is one of those actors like Gene Hackman, Sean Connery. Even if the movie is bad, he's still good. And he plays the President of the United States. And I guess what makes this film somewhat better than the first two is that the Christian propaganda stuff with Kirk Cameron kind of takes a backseat to Louis Gossett Jr. In fact, Louis Gossett Jr. is actually top billed over Kirk Cameron in the third movie. And even though a lot of his dialogue is absurd, as are all the other characters, some of his lines are more well written and he delivers them flawlessly. I get the feeling that when he agreed to do this, part of his deal was, "You want me, you better give me some good lines, and you better top bill me. I ain't taking second billing behind Kirk Cameron." The scenes with the president are more action-packed, and I will admit, some of these action scenes are pretty fun to watch. And Louis Gossett Jr. becomes a pretty decent action hero in the Charles Bronson essence. Oh, and Kirk Cameron gets married to Ray Steele's daughter, and their wedding is very awkward, because it's implied that they're deeply in love, but the last time we saw them, they were just in the baby steps of getting into a relationship. So to see them just jump into a wedding, expressing a lot of passion for each other is just... what? And also, Kirk Cameron will not kiss any woman that is not his wife. So yeah, you can get an idea of just how convincing this romance goes. So final thoughts on the series? And as I said, with the directing and the editing and putting the writing in there, it is a horror show and a catastrophe on just how movies should be made. I mean, Ed Wood did make better movies than this trilogy. And aside from Louis Gossett Jr. in the third movie, the only other thing I could enjoy in this series was, and you might think I'm a little crazy for this, but Kirk Cameron in the first Left Behind movie, he's pretty hot. I'm serious. And throughout the first film, all I could think was, wow, is this guy sexy. In the second and third film, he kind of lost the appeal. He just developed the disheveled look that you associate with a middle-aged alcoholic. But don't worry, after Kirk lost his sex appeal, his wife, Chelsea Noble, who's a pretty attractive MILF if I do say so, she's able to carry some kind of sexiness throughout the sequels, and I don't know if anyone's ever masturbated to the Left Behind movies, but if you're not into masturbating to hardcore porn, I say check these movies out. And another reason I decided to check this series out was I decided I'd check out the Nicolas Cage version of Left Behind that came out a year ago, and I just knew if I was going to check out that movie, I'd have to check out the Kirk Cameron movies. Well, I checked them out, and wish me luck. If you want a more in-depth review about why these movies are bad and the countless problems that are wrong with them, then I highly recommend you check out the online reviews of Channel Awesome reviewer Diamnda Hagan. Her reviews of the Left Behind movies are just great, as are just about any movie review she does.